All right, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of the Communal Table Talks. I'm CarloMaria Ciampoli, and I'm here with my co-host Bradford Thompson, Leslie Brenner, our third co-conspirator. Is momentarily absent, but she'll be back soon. We're having slight technical glitches, and as you can see, today we have a guest. It's the first of many. A lot of exciting guests coming in the next talks, in the next few months. But we have here David Walker. He's an interior designer extraordinaire that I had the pleasure to work with for a long time now. And he's going to be showing us some of the images that we created as a result of all the conversation that we had about how to kind of evolve restaurant for the future. We're here today to talk about flexibility. But before we jump in to the theme of today's talk, just few reminders for all of you who have been part of our first call. You know this already, but I wanted to remind everybody, if you have questions, please write them down either below in the ask a question portion, or you can do it on the right side where there is a chat. Again, it's an open conversation. We're going to start talking for a few minutes, and then please participate. And also, if you have a specific topic that you want to go over, that you're interested in going a little bit deeper, please send us an email. If you want to be a guest on our next talk, please send us an email so we can talk about it. We would love to have you. Yeah. Well, guys, flexibility. Flexibility means so many things. It means so many things, but it's a word that came back over and over during the last 6 months of conversation between me, Bradford, and Leslie. And I think that each one of us is obviously a different kind of point of view. For me, coming from an architectural background, flexibility it's mostly about. The spatial flexibility. But obviously, there are a lot of aspects to consider that go beyond the space and go into the operation and the other aspect of a restaurant. We'll see. I hear a feedback, and I see someone is even saying that. So I don't know if everyone else can mute what and see maybe this stops. Okay, let's see. So hopefully this is better. Okay, I see Leslie is back. Yes, apologies, guys. This the good thing of being live. There could be things that go wrong, but we keep going. So in New York City and in many other cities, everyone has seen this kind of phenomenon of a restaurant that becomes flexible in terms of its uses. And so it's a restaurant. It's not just a place where you go and have a meal and kind of share an experience with friends. But in this case, you see on this image, it could be a co-working space. Obviously, there are a lot of pros and cons that we can debate for a long time. But flexibility, it's also talking about going a little bit beyond the paradigm of having furniture kind of bolted on. The idea of creating a floor plan for a restaurant that kind of stays fixed. We think that as we evolve in the future of restaurants, we want to have the ability of moving things around, of being able to reconfigure the space even multiple times throughout the day. Maybe just starting in the morning with a staff yoga experience, and then going a lot of other direction. And absolutely, one thing that we always like to say is that social success equals economic success. And what I mean by that is that we need to really start thinking about restaurants as places that are flexible enough to give a wonderful experience to all different people from all different ages, from kids to the cool grandpa that's here in this picture. And also, those are a couple of pictures from a restaurant in downtown LA called V. That for us it's very interesting because it uses technology to allow flexibility of uses, and also flexibility in how the staff work and interfaces with the restaurant itself. And we've been again having a lot of conversation, and at a certain point we thought that it was going to be a good exercise to basically create a prototype that can help us test or verify if all the our ideas would be feasible, would be doable, or would be just good from an aesthetic standpoint. And what we've done, we involved David into the conversation, and really he's done an amazing job in translating again a lot of ideas into a physical space. Now we know that restaurants are like people, right? They're all shape and sizes, and personally, we love them all. But we need to choose one specific format, and we chose an urban restaurant. These, the images you're about to see are of again a prototypical restaurant of 3,500 square feet, more or less. And yeah, you'll see how this restaurant it's capable of being flexible and changing to day and night and to different function. So David, do you want to just take it from here and bring us through some of those images?
Really wanted to study, and the idea of flexibility within this prototype was really looking at how the restaurant can transition from the day and morning times to the evenings, and how the space itself can react to the changes of people's needs throughout that time period. So what we're seeing here is a view looking at the small patio space of the small restaurant and how it can change from the morning to the evening, going from a more casual coffee house vibe to an actual seated restaurant, full service in the evenings, with the idea of using flexible modular furniture, which is nothing new, but I think is a great utilization of trying to change the space throughout the day without having to have too much impact. So we can jump to the next few pics. So again, looking at this patio, and one of the ideas that came along with COVID lately has been the idea of the fastest and safest way to pick up to-go food. So looking at utilizing a flexible either to-go cart, which we can kind of see nestled in the background, that could function as both a host stand during the day as needed, or as a grab-and-go food and beverage counter in the evening, and it could be easily rolled out to the street side. So during peak hours of restaurant time, you don't have all of the Grubhub delivery drivers coming in and walking into the restaurant, but being able to come to a centralized, flexible space outside. And then as we move into the interior, what we're going to look at largely in here is how we can take the restaurant space and make it flexible to serve, in this case, as somewhat of a retail environment, as well as sort of a grab-and-go coffee space during the mornings. So one of the big ideas with the flexibility of the space is trying to utilize the existing things you would find in the restaurant, such as the tables and chairs, and trying to reorganize them in ways that can function as retail displays during lower hours where you don't have as many visitors and guests actually sitting down for a meal, and utilizing unique designs for, say, the bar and counters to create either grab-and-go service and removing some of the stools to actually create that counter service more easily. Then jumping to the night view, we can see that you jump back into looking at this really as a traditional restaurant space, again, with utilizing the same furniture, but swapping out, say, bar stools for areas that we had looked at using as fresh market produce displays previously. And a view showcasing what we're looking at is a large sort of millwork built-in wall in the back that can really facilitate an organized way of changing out the uses from the day to the evening. So what we've done is create these sort of built-in wall cabinets that can function as a piece of artwork, as well as sort of housing whatever needs are required during certain times of day. So at this point in the morning, you see that we've opened them up, exposing grab-and-go food containers, the coffee bar, the barista little stations, as well as bringing some of those maybe grab-and-go fresh produce that someone could grab on their way to work when they grab their coffee in the morning. And then switching to evening, you can easily see that what we do is we close up those custom millwork pieces to create sort of that wall art, and then open up another portion of it to really bring about sort of bar language that you would expect to find at a restaurant in the evening. And looking at sort of the main area of the restaurant during the day, how we can utilize a lot of the same furniture you would use for dining service as these retail displays. Looking at furniture that's highly flexible and movable, so we can actually nestle furniture together to create these larger displays and then break them apart when we need them for the evenings, as well as creating more permanent installations for millwork to allow for retail displays to be more eloquently hidden and securely locked during the evening when you don't need them. And then, as Carlo mentioned, the idea of co-working during the day is a really great use of these spaces when they're less utilized during the daytime. So looking at creating groupings of furniture that can be pulled together and creating sort of guerrilla conference centers where you can have offices come and meet and do very casual meetings, as well as bringing in some unique food services or coffee into the very back of the restaurant, utilizing some small food trucks as well. And then breaking down that furniture into a more traditional dining setting as well once you need to have that capacity.
Yeah, that's perfect. David, thank you very much for this kind of brief overview. Obviously, that we could talk about all the kind of design choices for hours, but we're gonna just keep going. I'm gonna bring Leslie back into the mix, and David, we'll talk very soon. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, David.
Cool. Bye-bye.
So, Carlo, as a designer, it's really interesting. I've seen these images with you before, but every time I see them, I think about the flexibility, and we talk about it. Rather than adapting to the situation, it's this flexibility going forward. And I think you've done a good job showing that physically what flexibility looks like. I think, as an operator and as a chef, I think what's important when we talk about flexibility is the mindset of flexibility, and understanding, our traditional restaurant roles and some of the rigidity of restaurants, is rethinking that a little bit, and how we approach it from a flexible mindset. And what really dawned on me just now, especially seeing this again, is that it's going to have to be a collaborative effort to execute a design system like that. So you're going to need a food person, whether it's a chef or manager's point of view, and a bar person, and really, rather than all the disciplines operating separately to create a restaurant space, is sort of this conversation, like kind of what we're doing, but this conversation around design and flexibility, and what do we want the restaurant to be, and what can it be, and that goes back to storytelling for me. When the restaurants are laid out and conceived, is what is the story you're trying to tell. And I think that it's going to be really important to understand your story well, so that you can be flexible within that story and not just try and jump on trends and see if things fit, but more, how wide can you tell your story to allow yourself to be flexible. But it's going to come from a mindset. And Leslie, I think you'll agree with people you've worked with, is people can get sort of laser focused on their concept and their idea, and not want to think about other things, but to really have a team that can pull ideas out of each other and make it a collaborative effort, and sort of flow within your story to tell a wider story and be flexible.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think I see so many people and help sometimes help people open restaurants, and they have this very sort of fixed idea about what it is. And I think that's, I think that's part of why we've all been so captivated with this idea of flexibility, because it can mean so many different things, and it can help a business in so many ways. And so if you just sort of like if you can like unrigid your mind as a creator, as an owner, as a manager, as or as a person who helps run a restaurant, then that kind of flexibility in thinking is like, oh, actually, I never thought about the space this way. But like my favorite of all of those slides and thank you, David, so much for that great presentation. And thank you everybody for being here. But my favorite slide of all of those is that one that shows the sort of retail, that kind of retail opportunity when you're just kind of looking at those green banquettes, but you can see that it's like that flexibility, like, oh my goodness, like I never thought about that, the fact that my restaurant can also be a retail space, and think of the revenue stream possibilities, or think about like that little, I also love that slide where people are just sort of informally gathering in a kind of conference roomy setting. Those banquets, those sort of little retail moments, I think they're super, super cool. And here where people are gathering, and it just feels like, you know what, I want to hang out there. I want to sit and work and meet, have a, sort of businessy meeting over coffee, because look at that cool food cart thing that's parked right there. And it feels like a community center. It feels like we can do all of these things. Like if we can just be like flexible enough about to think about these spaces in these other ways.
And I think the other thing that it does,
Bradford, I'm like, curious to kind of, hear from you, whenever, obviously, we design restaurants, then, we can never go through all the steps that you go through to actually, go through the moves and actually open the restaurant, train staff and all like operational side. And how, what do you think we need to do to help change a little bit, the mentality, so that people are more open to expand their operations?
Right. No, it's a good question. And I think having the different disciplines work more together.
It looks like maybe Bradford's it's stuck somewhere. I don't know what's going on today.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear Brad.
Carlo, can you hear me?
Maybe Carlo has a sound problem.
I'll talk.
Can everybody else hear Brad? Can people who are attending hear Bradford?
I'm just going to go on.
Maybe it's just me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're good.
So,
please keep going. Sorry, apologies, and I'll be back in a second.
I think what's important is that with the different disciplines working together, I think traditionally you have a design process, and then the architect does his work, and then the contractor takes over, and then operations comes in, and it sort of gets passed off. Whereas, if you can have it be more collaborative, and, some of the success I've had in the past is designing kitchens with like modular thinking. Like rather than one fixed kitchen, we have sort of modular stations that can be moved, and we set up the power and the plumbing so that they can be removed or altered without becoming a big construction project. And if everyone's involved throughout, rather than sort of silo work that gets passed along, I think you have those conversations sooner, and you sort of problem solve ahead of time, rather than when it's really expensive and everything's built and then you have to break a wall and reconstruct. I think that's going to be important.
I have a related question, like just from an operator point of view, Bradford, like this idea of moving, of how the space, changes over the course of a day. How difficult is that operationally, just in terms of, does it totally throw the staff? Like how crazy making do you think that would?
Yeah, I think it can be done well. I know there's some places in New York that operate as cafes, coffee space during the day, and transition to wine bars, and they'll do it with candles and music and very subtle changes. I think what it does is it forces the staff to be more flexible. If they're not thinking of themselves as just a food runner or just a cook, that they're part of the process of physically fixing the space during the day, then it's more they're part of the team and the feeling and the whole environment. But I think a lot of it is really getting the guests comfortable with it's okay to be here in the morning and be one thing, and then be here on the weekend with my family or in the evening and be something different. I think we as guests, as humans, like we go in a space more than a couple times and relate it to this is where I get coffee, and I would never go there for drinks because that's my coffee place. And I think that sort of working with the guests to let them know that this is okay to be many things, I think that's something that there's a restaurant in Los Angeles called Alcove where we used to go a lot, and they did a really good job of being a breakfast place, a lunch meeting spot, a wine after work, a dinner. They really, without changing much, were able to do that by the food they offered and the way the staff was. That really activated it.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have some really good questions here. I just like to jump in and address this one from Julian Pleiter. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What do you think the best?
I know Julian.
Oh, good.
Hey, Julian.
What do you think the best way is to assess what will resonate with customers in terms of how we can flex? There are lots of data emerging that show trends. How can we get closer to that info or anticipate it to flex as much as possible in the right direction?
It's a great question. I mean, I'll start with that. I think, yes, there is a lot of data, and I think that we sometimes tend to overconsume data in this tech age that we're in. I think the really best way is to spend time getting to know your customers because they're going to tell you through their what they order, you know, the data you collect, what they order and when they come, but really body language and conversations and spending the time to balance how you use technology with human interaction is the best way to do it. What do you think, Leslie?
Yeah, I think
one thing too.
Carlo?
One thing too that for me it's kind of very, very important is that, again, you know, keeping that like a flexible mindset where you know, it's like when you start a tech company, just since we're talking about data, you would never just you know, develop the full, you know, website and spend years of them and then showing it, right? You would show a version and then keep, you know, iterating. And I think that we can start thinking about restaurant that way. And I know that restaurants do that already. But, you know, when you start, you know, adding new uses and this kind of flexibility that we're talking about, I think that the process of trying something and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, try something else. It's going to be part of operating restaurants in the future.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, you know, a lot of these things are probably not so difficult or expensive to try, which is cool. And also just like as you're trying them or before you try them, just talking to your regulars, talking to, you know, who the people who you know are going to be your customer base, you know, whether you're talking to them in phone conversations or, you know, bumping into them at a, you know, having a drink with them or, you know, using your email marketing list to have a conversation with them or social media channels. I think people really like to tell us what they want. Yeah. And so, you know, I think you can learn a lot that way.
Well, it goes back to last time what we spoke about as well. People want to be heard. And I think the other part of that is our staff. You know, your staff has the most interaction with your guests and probably the most knowledge of how the guests react to things and the conversations that they have. So I think it's important to involve and empower staff members to really take that information and make adjustments on the fly when it's appropriate and really, you know, talk to them regularly about it, because they're the ones, you know, if they feel right about something, they're the ones that are going to market it and push it and tell their friends and really advocate for it. So I think that the staff is invaluable in this instance as well.
Yeah. So we have another question, and I think this is the one. Somehow the questions got lost, but we kind of re-grabbed this one. I think it's from Dave Mondell here in Dallas. Will the customer always be right moving forward, or do diners need to change their expectations when dining out? And if it came from somebody else, I apologize, but it's such a good question.
Yeah, may I?
Please.
I think that's one of the greatest misnomers in our industry, that the customer's always right. I think that our job is to make the customer feel comfortable and welcome and create an environment, absolutely. I don't know that they're always right. And I think that just that statement alone, right and wrong, is sort of an adversarial relationship. It can kind of give it that edge to it. So I think it's important that the guests understand, we've talked about this a lot, the cost of doing business, the true cost of doing business, and what ingredients cost and what labor costs. So and I don't want to say educate them, but share with them our costs and our issues that we have as operators, but also making them feel comfortable and safe in the environment. So it's a relationship, and it's something where the relationship needs to be nourished on both ends, and there needs to be awareness. I don't think I'm the customer, I'm always right, do what I say, and it's not us saying, well, if you don't like it, get out of my restaurant. It's really about nourishing the relationship.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's it requires some flexibility on the part of guests. Like we're going to have to flex a bit in the way we think about how we behave as guests and how we view what's due to us. Okay, we're paying, but like, what does that mean? Like, does it mean like everything's due to us? And I think it might be sort of useful, like if we can sort of move away from the idea of the customer is always right and think about it how would you behave if you're a guest in somebody's home? Like if we can start treating the people who are running the restaurants as if we're in their home. Okay, maybe we're paying, but they're providing something. Right. And so if we could just kind of, I don't know, maybe that's a way to kind of think about modeling guest behavior. Like, yeah, act like you're a guest, an honored guest, but act like you're honored to be in somebody's establishment. I think is maybe a little more where we should bend that. I don't know. What do you think, Carlo?
No, absolutely. I mean, frankly, being from Italy, I see like the stark difference between behavior, both of guests and people working in restaurants between Europe and US. Definitely. I mean, I remember this was many years ago, but I was with some friends in Rome. And something happened. The wine wasn't the right temperature. Something happened, and someone complained to the waiter, and the waiter in Rome was like, "Sorry," and that was it. that probably is the other extreme, but I think that it's it's ingrained in the culture in the US that you are always right, and I've seen plenty of times abusive behavior in some ways, and I think that opening up that conversation, although it could be uncomfortable on both sides, it's healthy because at the end of the day, what we're talking about. Evolving restaurant and being flexible, we're talking about resiliency. We want restaurant to thrive no matter what happens outside, right? So it's like no matter the next pandemic, restaurants that are gonna embrace a different mindset are gonna thrive because guests are gonna care about the restaurant because again, there is a relationship versus I pay and you provide and that's it.
And I think that part of what the pandemic has done is made people on the customer side understand that there's an existential threat to restaurants and their existence, and so it's gonna have to be more of a two-way street. Do you think we have time for one more question? Can we? We have
1 minute left, so maybe super quick.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so for Carlo, related to new restaurant construction, from an architectural standpoint and building permitting, is it challenging to design such a flexible space when you have to deal with occupancy load, fixtures counts for different business types? How do you deal with the code? That's from Stefania.
Good question.
Well, so this is a very kind of question that probably it can be answered in like the 30 seconds that we have left. So maybe we can just have a separate conversation. I think that definitely there is going to be there needs to be a lot of flexibility and starting a conversation also with the municipalities, because it's obviously when you think about a restaurant has a host of all these uses, the standard code is going to be really, really hard, if not impossible, to navigate. But again, as we evolve in the restaurant business, governments are going to have to adapt to move into the future together. So I think that it's going to be like another conversation. Maybe we can do a communal table talk code related one day.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're like 30 minutes, so it's we're at the end of this talk number 2. Thank you for everybody who joined, and we'll see you next month at the end of March for our talk number 3. We're finalizing the theme, so wait for an email from us with the theme. And again, we have a lot of exciting guests lined up, so we'll let you know in the next few days who's going to be, and we look forward to keep the conversation alive. And also, if you want to be part of the talk, being a guest, please let us know. We would love to bring everybody into the conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Bradford.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.